Okay, so today's lesson is going to be a little bit of review, a little bit of tying some things together. We'll introduce a little bit of new vocabulary, but it shouldn't be too many things that you've absolutely never seen before. Okay, so the first thing we're going to talk about is variation, because we've been talking about evolution and natural selection and how there has to be variation in the population for evolution to occur. There cannot be one trait that's better than the other if all traits are the same, right? So there has to be variation within the population to ensure that when the environment changes, there will be organisms that are well suited to that particular environment. So the first way that we can get variation, we've talked about before, are these mutations. Remember, they're random mutations. We don't have any control over them. Mutation is extremely important to asexually reproducing organisms because organisms that reproduce asexually are not, they're not getting that variation from the combination of the gamete cells, from the sperm and the egg cell coming together. Okay, their asexual reproduction, you're making an exact copy of the original organism. So mutation is the number one way that those organisms are going to get variation in them. Okay, mutation will have an impact on sexually reproducing species, but like I said, they have other ways of getting variation. Okay, so your sexually reproducing organisms, they're going to get their increase in variation just because of the nature of sexual reproduction. Okay, so remember, sexual reproduction is done by the formation of the gametes. Okay, so we form a sperm and an egg cell. And remember, these are haploid cells. Remember, we start off with the original cell, and we end up with these gametes that have half the number of chromosomes. We cut the number of chromosomes in half to produce those sperm and the egg cells. And so when the sperm and egg cells come together, here in fertilization, there's a new individual that is genetically unique from the parents because it's a combination of each one of the parents. So the nature of sexual reproduction leads to variation within the species. Meiosis also has the process of involves the process of crossing over. Okay, remember your crossing over where you exchanged parts of homologous chromosomes. Remember, I have homologous chromosomes up here. Remember our homology word that we've been using with evolution, meaning the things that are the same, those similarities that help show that ancestry. So remember, I have these homologous chromosomes that code for the same thing. And during the beginning portion of meiosis, we have portions of these homologous chromosomes that switch places, which allows them to get 4 different gametes. So that also increases the variation when these organisms come together, when the fertilization occurs. Another way that we can increase variation is through gene flow. And we've talked a little bit about this in class, and we've talked about it more as migration, not necessarily using the term gene flow. But all gene flow is migration. New genes are being moved from one population to another. And the only way you're going to move genes from one population to another is through migration. This particular bug here has moved into the green bug population, so it has now introduced brown alleles into the green allele population. So there has been gene flow. New genes have moved into the population. It could also be, genes leaving. You could have variety within, you could have a population of blue and red bugs and a population of blue bugs over here, and then let's say all of the red bugs left, and that would be another instance of gene flow. There would be introduction of the red alleles over here and actually a loss of the red alleles in the original population. Genetic drift is another concept that can have an impact on variation. Genetic drift doesn't necessarily increase variation. Genetic drift a lot of times actually decreases variation. But it hasn't, like I said, it has an impact on the variation within the population. And remember, if there's an impact on the variation, that can impact the population's ability to survive. And so all genetic drift is it's a change in our allele frequency and that change is going to be due to chance. So this would be something like a volcano, a hurricane, okay, a natural disaster here, something that has changed the allele frequency, like I said, totally due to random chance. Okay, this was totally unexpected. Okay, and there was usually a dramatic decrease in the alleles that are available. So we have two examples of genetic drift. The one we see on this page here is what's called the bottleneck effect. And so the bottleneck effect occurs when there is a very rapid, drastic decrease in the population size. So if you look at what look like these gumballs here, okay, there's been a rapid decrease in the population size, and so this has led to a change in the allele frequencies, okay, and there's been such a rapid decrease in the population size, okay, that some of these alleles have been completely wiped out of the population. Okay, and so the bottleneck effect is going to be random. It's random who survives and gets to reproduce. The bottleneck effect is going to be due to, this is what's going to be due to, let's say, a volcano or a hurricane or a tornado or a tsunami. Okay, you can see on your graph up here, you've got your original population size, and then whatever event has occurred, this bottlenecking event, this event that has drastically reduced the population size in a very short amount of time. Okay, like I said, a volcano eruption, a flood, okay, anything that could do that to the population very quickly. Okay, and so it's going to be random who gets to survive and reproduce. And so because that is random, that can have an impact on your allele frequency. There's no guarantee that you're going to have the exact same ratios that you had originally survive and then able to reproduce. Another example of genetic drift is what's called the founder effect. So this is, again, has a change in the allele frequency, okay, and it's going to be due to random chance. And with the founder effect, basically you have a founding population. You have a small population that is formed, and it's going to have different allele frequencies than the original. So for instance, here, my original populations were about half and half, red and green. And there's a small population, this founder population, that is not necessarily representative of the entire original population. And so that by having this founder population, its reproduction, its organisms that it produces are going to have a different allele frequencies than the original population. Both of these things, any form of genetic drift here, can cause the populations, the two populations, to increase, their differences between them to increase very rapidly. Okay, so it can cause the differences between the two populations to increase, again, very quickly. And bottleneck effect can do this, as well as the founder effect. And so if my differences between the populations are increasing, and they're increasing rapidly, this can also increase my rate of speciation. Okay, and let's do a brief speciation review. Remember, speciation is the formation of a new species. Okay, and as a general rule, that's going to happen usually due to isolation. Okay, so we said that the genetic drift could